Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in our APPI Applied Precog Learn by Doing series of webinars. We're now doing these the first and third Wednesday of every month. And today we're going to be talking about how to be better and better at precognition and ARVing. So here's the outline of what we're going to be talking about. And this is, I don't know, what I'm doing today I think is so important. It's at a high level, but it's at the sort of basic level of where I think the mindset needs to be to do precognition well. And ultimately, it comes down to taking personal responsibility for it. You know, I do teaching, so many others do teaching. Stuff like this has been taught for many years and goes back thousands of years in terms of precognition. But to have it really happen, you have to take responsibility for it. There's no blame. It really comes down to you. Now, one of the things which I want to do here is make it clear that whether you know it or not, you do already have an i-psi personality. And I'm going to use this symbol for that, and we'll be talking about it in terms of that to really make it personal. And this i-psi personality is really this connection between our physical world and the non-local, non-physical world that's out there as well. And it's that connection. But, who do you really think, who do you feel creates this personality which is within you? And of course, it's you. So that'll be the first part of what we'll be doing here, and I try to limit this teaching part, if you will, formal teaching part, to about an hour. We'll see how I do. And then we'll get into a feedback session for a RV, a prediction that was done well over a month ago, and there's a coordinate. And then we'll do a brand new prediction, learn by doing, for a new prediction that's a month plus out. And we'll do the RV session, the judging. I'll be asking you, if you want to share your sessions, to send them in so that we can discuss them with everybody and learn from them. And then the feedback for this particular one will be a month from now or more. So, this is a great quote from Alice in Wonderland. "It's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards," the Queen remarked. Now, right now, wherever you are with your psi belief system, take just a quick moment. How far along are you there? Do you know that you can remember the future? How clear are you about that? Well, all of us are a bit different, but that's part of your psi personality. Once you accept this concept of non-locality, being able to get information instantly throughout space and time, that's what non-locality basically means. And you accept that precognition is then a natural part of that, since you have access to the future. Associative remote viewing is really a natural and easy to appreciate application of psi. So get into that mindset. Precognition is real. You can have future memory. And now let's just define ARV, because really, once you have that mindset, it's quite simple. In linear time, we start with a remote viewing session which has a simple tasking, describe and sketch what you're going to see in the future. What? Describe and sketch the target you'll see in the future. After we do the RV session, there's a judging because we are doing binary ARV. So we're really asking um, about a question, let's say a yes-no question, a binary question, yes-no. The way we do that, and this is where the judging comes in, we have two possible pictures for now. Let's call them pictures. We really call them photo sites. One which is associated with yes, the other is associated with no. So when we have the answer, your target is going to be either the yes picture or the no picture. It's as simple as that. So here you're asked to describe the picture you're going to see in the future. Well, in the future, you'll have the truth, and you are in many ways simply remembering the future independent, if you will, of what the question was. Your job is to do nothing but describe and sketch the picture you're going to see at feedback time. This is what I call purposeful precognition. This is not knowing who's going to be at the other end of the phone that you haven't talked to for 10 years. Here you're doing it on purpose. And it all begins with your feedback session because that's the truth. And that information somehow is able to be shared with your remote viewing. And the judging is when you pick up which is the, in fact, correct answer based on the session. Now, we'll be doing this later, but that's it. Linear time, you do your remote viewing. There's a judging session in between based on two pictures, yes and no. And then at the feedback session is when you see your target. We light it up to make it easy to remember the future when you're at your remote viewing session. So, formally, the task, which you do here, is describe and sketch your, and then we use a 6-digit number. We call it either a coordinate, a target reference number, transcript reference number, but that's your cue. Describe and sketch what you're going to see in the future. Now, no matter how many times I say it and how many times you remind yourself, there are going to be reasons that you're going to think that the target is something else. Don't. The target is very simple. The feedback photo site. If you describe something else, you didn't describe your target. Okay? The target is the feedback photo site. Now, I've introduced the word photo site here, which is different than a picture. Your consciousness has access to everything that is occurring at the time the picture was taken. Your consciousness can report through all of your senses. That's very important to understand. We call this remote viewing, like the eye sense, the seeing sense is the most important. A lot of people get sounds regularly, smells, tastes. From the subconscious, words will come up. Okay? All of your senses, your entire nervous system is at the disposal of consciousness, and that includes getting memory from the future. So when I talk about a photo site, it's everything as if your consciousness was at that site, because in fact that's what's happening. The picture is like a translator taking you to the site with your consciousness, and it's your job to report what is at that site and can be verified from the picture. I don't care if there's something 100 yards away that's really interesting, and I'd like you, and part of the training is to not discuss that, is to describe what can be verified from the photo. That, of course, is important from the judge's standpoint. Now, this is the binary part of it. The judging involves the two possible feedback targets, as I've said. And the judge will ultimately make a decision about yes or no, which permits us then to take action. We can wager if we're doing, financial or sports wagering. But there are other kind of questions that you can ask. But obviously, if this is going to be valuable from a precognitive standpoint, you want to be able to take action, and that happens after the judging and before the outcome is known. So I maintain that that's it. The ARV. ARV is just simply a formal protocol to take advantage, if you will, of this future memory capability, precognition. Now, let's see if we can get into this fact that it is you who's doing the creating and this being with precognition during all of these steps. That's sort of the key. We're doing this purposefully. This is really what actually Stephen Schwartz often likes to call focused awareness, which is what indeed this is. Every step is you're trying to stay focused and be self-aware, and it involves mind, creativity, and discipline. Now, the creativity comes in lots of different ways, but for now I want to focus on the creative aspect of your now personality. See, I use the word your, but it's up to you to make it personal. So it's i-psi, it's your psychic abilities here, your precognition. So it's up to you to create the intention, attention, and expectation. These have been identified, and all of us that have been around agree, as among the top ideas involved in precognition. What is clear, at least to those of us on our long-established team, is that intention, attention, and expectation play a very important role in the success of both application and research of remote viewing. Now, this was Joe McMonagle and Ed May in a paper that they put out quite a few years ago. And Joe, of course, is probably the best, at least public remote viewer around. And Ed May is a scientist that's done this way back to the SRI days and has kept up with the science. Anyway, intention, attention, expectation. Let me see if I can get a little more precise, or at least give some more ideas on that to try to make it clear where it's really you that has to create this. In my opinion, the expectation is frankly the most difficult to get in a really positive, deep sense. And this is really expecting back here, when you're doing your remote viewing, that all of this information that comes into you, you expect it to be correct. You just take it for granted that future memory is a reality and that you can do it, most of the time. And that your expectation is for the next prediction, so that's the short term, that you're going to do well, and intermediate and long term, you're just going to continue to do maybe better and better. I mean, we know nobody is perfect, but this is part of, you got to get into your gut, into your personality in a deep way. And part of the reason this is difficult is because part of our consciousness will experience, inevitably, misses. You will get information which is not accurate. How do you handle that? Well, that's part of the learning. That's part of the creativity. how you grow. This is stuff which grows with you. And paying attention to everything, but the misses and the hits, how you react to these are important. How you react to every phase of this is important for you to watch, because that's how you learn about yourself in this context. And then intention, the obvious high level intention is describe and sketch your feedback target. That's terrific. But you might want to clarify that and go down a little deeper, and you do this consciously as part of your personality. For example, I'm starting now to have a secondary cue, um, um, which is just automatically implied now in every remote viewing ARV session and remote viewing session I do, and that's to describe the feedback target elements which are unique. The most unique ones, the most outstanding ones, the ones which I won't be able to, the judge won't be able to separate, will be able to easily separate, won't be able to get confused with anything else. So to be clear, I'm describing the correct target in a rather unique way. So I just added that. That's me. I did that. That's now part of my i-psi. You need to come up with stuff that you do yourself. That's the creativity part of it. Hey, you want to copy things from other people? That's fine. That's one way of being creative, but you need to do that. You need to be very aware of these three things and make them real and consciously make them part of your i-psi personality. Now, this creating and learning via precognitions are choices in each of our lives. And I think, here you are. So you've already made that choice. But I believe it's really important as part of this personality that you're creating, and why not consciously creating, to take a little time to really get into why are you doing this exactly? What is good? What helps your precognition? What do you believe helps it? These are two very different kinds of questions, but you should, I think, get into them both. The first one is sort of, very top level. The second one, what is good for your precogging? You can't be in this business for very long without trying to get better at it. And you'll have a belief system which will come from that based on your experience, based on what other people tell you, based on this, based on that. Just like everything else in your full personality, you have a belief system. Well, be aware of what that belief system is, and then here's where discipline comes in. I believe less important than the specific belief system, now this is my belief, is to be consistent, is to live in a consistent way with your belief system. And so if you believe something is really better, will be better for your precognition, that's what you should do. And what is remarkable is as you start paying more and more attention to what you do, what you're going to notice is that you're doing things which are inconsistent with your belief system, unless you're particularly unusual. But at least that's something to pay attention to. Belief systems are very important, and over time, all of our belief systems certainly can change, and generally they do based on other experiences. But that's part of the creative process that you're involved in. Okay, so the i-psi and the universe of collective consciousness are in communication via fuzzy boundary. Now, I'm introducing here a little theory, which I've talked about in other webinars, but it's really very important to have a sense, at least, of how this works. The intellect wants to know, the intellect is part of you, and this idea that there is a universe of collective consciousness, everything, past, present, and future, that ever has, that is, that will exist, everywhere in the universe, physical universe, is in this blue circle. That's its idea, that there is such a thing, okay? It doesn't have a boundary because as soon as you think something is outside the boundary, it goes in the boundary. Because ideas are in there, everything is in there. The equations of quantum mechanics are in there. What you had for lunch is in there. What you're going to have for lunch tomorrow is in there. Okay? So think of this as being that kind of place. Ingo Swann called it the matrix, and I think they are actually very closely related, but I think the matrix is on sort of the physical side of this. I'm thinking of this as being on the non-physical side, but they basically have the same kind of information. Now, everything is in there. You're creating a personality that is psychic, that in particular right now we're focusing on precognition. So it wants to get information which is in this UCC about the future. Now, everything that you try to take out of the UCC, like you try to build a i-psi, has what I'm calling a fuzzy boundary. You really, there are always edges to everything other than the UCC, which has no boundary. But it's through these edges that you can imagine the information coming up into your conscious mind. So there's a submerged consciousness. I'm going to talk a little bit about that shortly. But somehow you're getting this information through, let's call it a fuzzy boundary, as a model. Now, the basic thing is to just simply to be open to this communication channel with a place that has all this information. Of all the information which is out there, you've set your intent, and the specific information you want is going to come up and rise up to your consciousness. That's should be something like that should be part of your belief system. That's a rather natural thing. You've probably already done it. And then one of the things to also learn and consciously pay attention to this is to feel the difference between what comes up from the UCC, through your subconscious into your conscious mind, and what sort of goes from the ego to your conscious mind, the intellect, the normal way you think of things to get through your physical life. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, all of us have our day-to-day kinds of personalities. But if it's coming from there, it has a different sense, a different feeling than when it's coming from the UCC. And that's something you can learn to distinguish. And so you'll be able to tell kind of good information from questionable information. Now, this communication channel, take responsibility for you creating the way the improvements are going to be in the future. I mean, the fact of the matter is you're born with this. You're always getting information from the UCC and stuff that comes up to your consciousness. The source is real deep. But you can expand this. You can make it greater. You can open up other areas of communication that might not have been open to you before, and take responsibility for that and improve it in ways that you want to improve. Okay, having said all that, in terms of being there with it, I want to show you one example of a newbie. We did this at our summer conference in June, and a brand new guy who didn't want to come, his wife dragged him. He never really had a whole lot of interest in this, but he came. So he's a brand newbie, and he put together this transcript and judging. And there we also had Play-Doh. Just like you sort of, when you do a remote viewing session, you're just open to getting information. Well, if you have Play-Doh in your hand, you sort of let your fingers do the walking, and you make things. Well, this is what he did, totally blind, of course. All he got was this 6-digit coordinate, and the transcript is the dark lines. That's what he put together. Later, he judged it, and I'm going to show you what that means in terms of A's and B's. There are two possible photo sites, as I described, and you can see he got really good matches, all B's. He didn't put in any A's. He probably could have put one A in there or something like that. But nevertheless, and then he judged it on a 0 to 7 system, with a B being a 6 and an A being 1, and we're going to talk about that system later. But for now, the point I want to make is a newbie. He wasn't consciously creating his i-psi or anything, and this is what his transcript was. He added this for the judging, and now I'm going to show you the target. So, his ranking, he understood the ranking on the 0 to 7 system. He gave it a 6. Look how good this is. He got the track, he got the shape, he got this. I mean, this is really good. Let's look down here. This looks a lot like the cow pusher. I forgot what they call those things, but that looks a bit like that. The track. I mean, this was obviously a good system. He was getting information from this picture, from this photo site. Now, he didn't get any sounds or anything like that, but he certainly got the idea of man-made. Things like that came in. Okay. Do you think, feel, sense that this had an impact on him? Do you think this affected his i-psi, inside him, how he thinks about precognition? Well, of course it did. And once you get past being a newbie, you now can, and I believe it's valuable, to pay attention to how you feel and how your journey is going in the psychic precognition area. So so that's important. Now, one other thing which I want to point out here, because it's so obvious here, is this: when he first saw the picture, his first reaction was likely the kinds of things which he got here: the circle, the geometry right in here, and it's a lot of this first blush stuff that seems to get transmitted quite well. So that's a little aside. Now let's talk about the mind. There's this article from Scientific American, which is a very well-respected magazine that tries to take from all the peer-reviewed material that's going on and put it in language that less scientific people can understand. It's really a great resource. And they had a whole article on the unconscious mind. Now, I want to relate this very directly to this I-personality idea. I think you all agree you have one, whether you're conscious of it or not. When the subject comes up, you react to it. So that's part of your I-personality. And here, everything I've been doing today is suggesting that you consciously and purposefully take responsibility for creating it, as you move forward in time. Frankly, I think whether you take it conscious responsibility or not, it is your responsibility. But why not take conscious responsibility for it? Now, one of the first things I want to do is get rid of the idea of unconscious. There is no, un means not. There is no such thing as a not conscious mind. Let's call it the subconscious mind. I like to use the word sometimes submerged, because this picture does have the right ideas in it, in that there is something below the surface. So let me see now if I can relate all of these to you. The idea of consciousness is that above some surface, there is a conscious mind. I don't know if you can read that, but that simply says CM for conscious mind. So you have your conscious mind up here. You know it better than you know anything else. In fact, the word know should be defined by what you're aware of in this now moment. Right now is what you know, period. No questions, nothing. The experience right now is what you know. That's the ultimate definition of knowledge. You know this present moment. If you're seeing things, when you're looking around, if you're hearing, you're smelling, you're tasting, the immediate knowledge in the now, okay, that's the conscious mind. The submerged conscious mind down here, okay, everything up under this, I think sometimes it's called the Lyman, but it's, there's an interface of some sort, which in fact is fuzzy, but there's an interface here. And below that, we know there's all kinds of stuff that's going on. I mean, our memories are there. How does our body work? Who's taking care of my heart and my breathing and all that kind of stuff? My conscious mind isn't doing that. I'm not aware in the now moment of all that, but there's all kinds of good stuff going on in my subconscious mind. And how deep do you think that goes? Okay, we'll leave that open for now. And then there's this other thing. All of these have their fuzzy boundaries, which I want to call the ego. It's what gets you through your physical life. It's in the physical world. It is aware. Notice this communication allows us to communicate with all of these personalities. The ego is, in fact, aware of the stuff that's going on in the conscious mind, but it also has all kinds of reactions from the submerged conscious mind based on its belief systems, its history, all kinds of stuff. So I'm really not telling you anything I think that you don't already know at some level and even believe in, though we all have different sort of angles on it. But these things, the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the ego, together are what will contribute to this I-personality. So it's no different than all of these contributing to your personality as a spouse, to your personality when you're at work, to your personality when you were a child. Things mix, and yet you do get the sense that you're a different person when you're talking, to your girlfriend or boyfriend than when you're talking to your boss. So that's the idea here, is that these personalities, in fact, have existence with fuzzy boundaries, and you can work them. You can work on your relationship with your boyfriend or girlfriend. You can work on your precognition. And so that's what this is indicating. But one of the things that we've learned about the i-psi, and that's why underneath is the ego personality. The conscious mind and the subconscious mind are the two most important personalities to interface with the precognitive mind. And we keep the ego mind as quiet as possible, but it's still got to be around because we have to get the information which comes from the subconscious to the conscious on a sheet of paper. Now, the information which comes from the subconscious, okay, which is then shared with the conscious mind through your nervous system. That's why it's all of your entire nervous system is active here. All of that, the source of that is this UCC, the matrix, the base, and the information is down there. And I don't know if you saw, but I do think it's important to see that this UCC, the mindset, which is really important to have, is that the UCC is more than whatever you think you are. I do believe, now maybe this is just me, but I do believe that when you're doing precognition, your i-psi personality really needs to feel it's part of something bigger than itself. And I don't care how big you think you are, when you start getting information from the future, you just somehow realize that you're part of something really rather magnificent, rather mysterious, and enjoy it. I mean, just wonder that you're part of that because it's kind of amazing. Okay. How now do we do all this? Well, we do all this by recognizing that the subconscious has beliefs, ideas, emotions, which you may not be consciously aware of, but you certainly know they're down there. And they bubble up to the surface, and they're actions, thoughts, and feelings that you do based on what's down here, but it goes both ways. Things that you experience up here affect the subconscious. It's a very dynamic system. And really start paying more and more attention to all of this stuff, which you can do basically by intending to pay more attention and expecting to pay more attention and to be learning more and more really about yourself and your i-psi personality. Okay, I want to, I'm sorry, I need to take a short break here. This is sort of silly, but I do. It'll be just 1 minute. I need to go to the restroom. Hold on. Boy, that was embarrassing. Sorry about that. as I'm getting older, and I should have. Anyway, let's just move on. Okay. Um, Here is again from Scientific American. There was an article, "Secrets of the Expert Mind." Um, so they had done a very detailed study on experts in a lot of different fields and tried to understand what was it that they had in common that made them so expert. Chess, music, sports, that sort of thing. And of course, that's what I think we would like to, all of us would like to do, is to have an expert psi-Personality. So this creation process that we're talking about is a combination of things like intention, motivation, emotions, feelings, thoughts, expectations, and actions. But the key to this that Scientific America pointed out is in an effortful fashion. And I had never really heard that word until I came across this article quite a few years ago now, but still. Um, Now, the meaning of effortful is taken from this article, and let me explain this to you because it really is very important. What matters is not experience per se, but effortful study, which entails continually tackling challenges that lie just beyond one's competence. Continually tackling challenges that lie just beyond one's competence. So here you are, already pretty good at something, but yet you take on that next thing that's just beyond what you can do now. That's effortful study. Really, just, I think you get the idea, but then the experts do it. Even the novice engages in effortful study at first. Okay, so he's learning this new person that came was learning it. It was great, and he did it. In contrast, experts in training keep the lid of their mind's box open all the time, always open for learning, open all the time, looking for that area where they can apply their effortful study. Thus, motivation appears to be a more important factor than innate ability in the development of expertise. That's, I think that's really very important. You have to decide how much along this spectrum you believe in terms of your i-psi. You may reach a point where you get a few bad sessions, and you say, well, I guess that's as good as I can do. Well, you're not taking this effortful study approach, which means you don't really believe it that much. You have reached the best you can do. Now, a lot of people have said in this field and almost every other field that the opposite is true. There's like a genetic component. And I believe there is a genetic component at the beginning. But how far you go, that depends on your effortful study. Okay, so here's just a kind of a summary. Again, in linear time, but precognition begins here, and we're doing purposeful precognition. And the feedback session is where you see the truth, where you see the target. So let's do it. If there are any questions or anything, maybe I could take a small pause here. I see in the box, newbie session went after the first one. Lila, that's a good question. I don't know what his record was after that. Let's see, newbie session. I just don't know the answer to that. That's a good question.
Marty?
Uh-huh.
Okay. How do you tell when you've shifted to the wrong photo site or displacement, whatever? I mean, if you have both in your transcript, how can you tell when you've shifted? Or
Okay.
is there a way to tell that you've shifted to the wrong target?
Okay, let me answer that in the best way I know how. And that is to almost sidestep it for the following reason. First, let me explain. There may be some people here that don't know what displacement is. As I've indicated, there are two possible outcomes, yes, no, each one associated with a possible photo site, picture and the associated consciousness with it. Now, often a person will give a really, really good description, not just a little bit, okay? Enough of a description that you feel that that person's consciousness went to what turns out to be of the two possible targets, it was the wrong target. It wasn't the target that actualized. It was not the target that you saw at feedback time. But nevertheless, they gave a very good description of it. That's what is called displacement. Now, can you get a sense of that? I hope so, but I can't tell you how. I can't tell you what for you will be the way. Guess what? You have to do that. I've had displacement. Um, um, what I've just done is add that sub cue, which I told you about, which is to give a really good description of that unique element or unique elements in the target that I see at feedback time, and nothing which has to do with the other target. So that's what I'm doing for me personally. But I think each of you are going to have to watch your consciousness. I also recommend doing focused meditation sessions. Ask your subconscious, hey, can you come up with some signal that you can give me? Or just stop giving me that other information. How? You need to talk to your subconscious. That's part of the communication channel, is not just opening it up so you can get precognitive information. Hell, a communication channel with the UCC, there ought to be a lot of things you can do with that that would be to your benefit that you'd want to do, including talking to your subconscious. How about talking to your body? We've done other webinars on having stuff like this go for health. Okay, anyway, I gave a long answer, but bottom line, the fact that you're aware of it, when it happens, review what happened, look for the signs, and ultimately it's your responsibility to get past it. And obviously a lot of people have. Though even someone like Joe is not 100% immune from displacement. So I think there's something in the system. There's a uncertainty principle and stuff going on in the biggest picture, that makes sense to the UCC, that will always give us misinformation from time to time. It just, at least we haven't reached the point where it's 100%. Okay. So let me go on. Okay, so we're ready to do feedback. How do I get my feedback target? Okay, 206639, and everything with the protocol that we're using now, we're now moving into a more specific ARV protocol called the Winning Entanglements protocol. There are different kinds of protocols to do associative remote viewing. What we're about to do now and what we did in the previous session that generated this transcript was a protocol. And there, everything is done online via either email or links to our associated website that does this. So it's all done online. And so let's go do it now. Now to do it, I'm going to show you. Okay, so this was an email that was sent out by the group manager, which was me in this case, because this was a webinar workshop. And I hope you can see this, but it was just a classic email that went out to everybody in the webinar workshop group. But I'm sort of the representative of that. The other groups have many members, and it would go out to each member individually, and they'd see something just like this, which would indicate what the tasking was. And in this case, the tasking was the S&P be over 2,400 on Friday, and the winning side was yes. So of the two possible targets, the computer, once the group manager indicated it was yes, the program now knows, okay, yes was associated with a specific picture. That's the target photo site. And all we do is click on this link, okay, and then up comes a page like this. And again, it lists the event, and every person in the group, remember these are multiple groups, every person in the group needs to put in their own email, because in general, every person gets a unique target. So there's no looking around at somebody else's mind to get their target and what they're doing. That's called telepathic overlay. This is set up so each person will get a unique target. Now, the exception to that happens to be webinars like this, where it's just valuable to all do it the same so we can talk about the same predictions and everything. Okay, so that's it. So all you do then is put in your name and you click, and there it is. So, pow, up comes the feedback target. What's your first reaction for that? What's the first thing you get? You got what? Water? Maybe two, maybe ships, maybe blue. But that first reaction is very important. It's like you're tuned in to the Gestalt, or for whatever reason, you're tuned in to something about this. And then as you look further, you get more of the details, other things that interest you. But this is your feedback target. This is when, there's so many different models for precognition. The one which is really not how I believe it works, but is good for talking about, is that the information is sent back in time. Somehow you are communicating with your remote viewing session. I showed you a session before, and there are thousands of them out there done by military viewers and others now, where the matches are so good, it's almost as if you were looking at the picture. Maybe took a very, very brief look and then had to write down what you saw. But that is the kind of communication which is going on with your remote viewing session. I think the entanglement model, where it's entangled kind of outside of space and time, that this information is just out there and it's being shared at the remote viewing time, but it's right now when you're looking at this that the UCC has the truth and it's put in there to be shared, past, present, and future. Okay, so that's how you get it. Now let me go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Now, 206639. There turned out, in this case, this was a rather special, it wasn't really done in a webinar like this, and there were only 2 people that participated, but here are the 2 sessions that were done for this. And I want to show you these just to, set you up for the newbies for what you're about to do when we do a new one. But you can see this sheet of paper, which if you email me, I'll be glad to send you a copy of the blank, has all the kinds of things that your nervous system through your consciousness can report about the target. Textures, colors, smells, taste. Dimensions are a big one. A lot of sketches have to do with different kinds of dimensions, geometry, sounds, dynamics, temperatures. And you get feelings. You can get feelings, and this is something else which you will learn by paying attention to distinguish. There might be feelings at the site when the picture was taken. Somebody might be really happy, might be excited, might be tired. And then you might have your personal feelings about what you see when you see the picture, the photo site. All of that are things which can be reported. This person, you can see, added some of the old things that they were interested in and then put down what they got, like the colors here, yellow, gold, blue, brown, got smells, etc. It all starts by putting the coordinate at the top, and then you always put your name and date. I think the time is valuable to put. This person put this specific question, Evelyn. So this sort of above the line, you're getting yourself ready. You're now doing the transition from the ego to the i-psi, but it's part of the i-psi. You're now doing the protocol. You get quiet, and a lot of people, but not everybody, do ideograms. You say the coordinate, you write the coordinate, and you do an ideogram. You can see this person wrote the coordinate and did multiple ideograms. It's like the information is already out there. The ideogram is part of decoding it, but then you've got to go through and get it into sketches and words that will be understandable to a judge. And notice if you look at most of these words, they're words, simple kinds of words. That seems to be the way the subconscious likes to communicate. Sweet, mellow. It doesn't name. Naming is a rather high-level intellectual function. You can do a great description of a fire engine without ever knowing the word fire engine. When little kids first see something like that, they're just taken by it, and all of their reactions to it are at the level of the words and the kind of sketches that you would do at that level. Now, so here's the feedback target for this, and let me go through now. I made it even bigger because the very first thing you want to do is really get into that feedback target during your feedback session. And then with your transcript, you now go further into the comparisons, and I always recommend the good stuff. It's during the feedback session when the perfect opportunity is right there with you now to learn about this send-receive kind of model, how to use the communication channel, how do you share information, and how did you? Because you look at something here, and you see comparisons, like I'm seeing dynamics, running, it looks like jumping, so moving. In fact, Evelyn, you're here. Why don't you quickly do the kind of feedback session that you might do? You know, this isn't exactly the right environment, but why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay, well, the at the top I have action and fast, and that definitely applies to the boat. And the ideogram could have been either one, but it's got some suggestion of people there, and there's people on the deck there. I like to use a magnifying glass to look at the photo sites. I use my large monitor, and then I even use a magnifying glass a lot of times to get details when I'm looking, and I'll notice things that I didn't see on my laptop. But anyway, the first sketches is, you know, I felt like they kind of looked like horse heads moving, and those turned out to be probably the cactuses. But the rest of the session was more.
Okay, let me just make that a little clear. Notice she
That's
put
where I got the idea
here.
of a chariot.
Okay, wait a second. Hold on, Evelyn. Evelyn, hold on.
That boat is a chariot. Looks the one on the right almost looks like a chariot drawn by horses. And the idea of the crowd and that shape B, that's definitely the front of that boat.
Yep.
Ship, I should call it. And then down at the bottom, this like smokestacks, or the antennas radiating out for the two different boats would work.
Okay.
And so anyway, this is like 3 months ago, so I've learned a lot since then.
Right. But let me point out now.
But I did a pass on it because it seems like it had a lot of aspects on both.
And notice you got a lot of A's, and she got a lot of B's, and then she ranked it 3-3 on the 0 to 7 scale, and that's a pass. And there's nothing wrong with a pass. But
that's about it.
Feedback, you give yourself. Interesting that I was able to communicate the motion part of this.
Are you there, Marty? I can't hear you.
You can't? Yeah, I was talking to you. Can the rest of you hear me, or did something happen here?
I can hear you, Marty.
Oh, okay. Okay, Evelyn, I don't know. You can't hear me now, Evelyn?
My sound has disappeared, so.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know what to do about that, but I'm going to go ahead. But you can see that she learned. Now, she also learned that she got stuff from the other picture. That's why this issue of displacement, which is the ultimate of that, comes in. Getting information, a little information from the other picture. Hey, it could be random. None of these are super, what I would call super strong ones. You know, like the session I showed you before with the train. That was really strong stuff. Here, you know, nothing really super strong stands out, and so I think she did it just right. So let's look at the next one. Lynn, are you here? I don't know if Lynn... No, I guess not. Okay, but you can see, same idea here. During the judging was when she added the A's and the B's. She also, I think, passed. I passed overall. I can't remember. I like people to put on it what they did here, so I can share it with you. But notice she has the C here. Drainage, mountains. Now here, she marked this as an A. And the other thing that you do during the feedback is you learn about your judging. I mean, looking at this now, don't you think that should have a B? Drainage implies water, maybe not the mountain so much, but I would give this a little B. What we ask people to do when they judge is use this A-B approach, but they might use a lowercase b if it's not as strong, then a B, and then I have, and I've seen other people make a giant B if there's something which is super outstanding, because all of that goes into how you do your final judging on the 0 to 7 scale.
But Marty, Marty, I have a question. I don't really understand the A's and B's, what they represent.
Good. Okay, you can see the C for water matches the water here. This was photo site B. Remember I talked about the judging, and there are two possible pictures? When you do the judging, and this person did self-judging, most of us nowadays are doing self-judging, but not everybody. She had this picture as B, and then the other picture, which I'm not emphasizing, but it was mentioned as a cactus picture, was photo site A. Okay, so, and it was yellow goldus. So she put an A next to yellow and gold, which she did on her remote viewing time, but the A's and B's are done during the judging session. You get that?
No, I still don't get it.
Do you?
When
Okay.
are you thinking as you write down your impressions? You just sort of intuit whether one of them belongs to an A or B?
No.
Oh,
When
wait a minute. I
you
get it. After you do it, you look at the target picture and you see what you were
it
looking for,
is
and
an
then you
entire
break it down.
right. It's an
Okay, thank you.
entirely separate session, entirely
Thank
separate. Yes. And so now you're saying you make the assumption that I got really good information from the target at the feedback time, and now that's what I'm looking for. Okay, well, oh, here I got a B match, but I also got some A matches. So it wasn't the best of my sessions. You know, you don't even have to say that. It was what it was. But here you can see the B matched nicely. I'm claiming that, and that's the other point I want to make, is that feedback time is when you can learn. Like I would have given drainage a small B. But it's up to each person to do this, and each person builds their own i-psi and their own approach. Even Statue of Liberty almost. But you know, sometimes you get to the point where you think you're pushing it, and you might be, but that's all internal to you, and you're watching yourself as you're going through this, and you're learning. Okay, so hard, loud, wave, I don't know what that word is, but sound, certainly loud sound is good. Blue, very good, and that sort of thing. But this also was a pass, not as outstanding as the example you saw before, and lots of others. Okay, but I wanted you to see that. Now notice, inevitably, unless you get one of these really, really good sessions at the 6 or 7 level, and even then sometimes, you'll want to use the 5-second rule, which is to get rid of negativity. You know, we talked, hey, we didn't do as well as we'd like and all that, and that's fine. Or you'll talk about the other side and why did you get such a good match to it, or that kind of thing. I really believe this 5-second rule is so valuable, because if you will do it, you just get rid of the negativity. When something comes up which is negative in your mind, say, yeah, okay, there it is again. This starts from when, well, okay, hold on, let me do this right. The 5-second rule started way back. I don't know how far back it goes, but we used it on our kids with food. I think that's where it started. Something drops on the ground, and within 5 seconds, you can pick it up, and there are no germs, not enough germs on it to cause any problems, so you can still eat it. It's my understanding that they're actually doing scientific studies now on this. But that's the idea, that just let it be negative for like 5 seconds and then come back into a positive mindset. The other way this is often said, and many of you have probably heard this one, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. So through any of your sessions, you return back to the session with the more positive, fun, creative, interested attitude. So that's a 5-second rule. And after you finish your feedback session, during the feedback session, we don't recommend paying much attention to the other picture, which I'm showing you here, which is the cactus picture, because it's during that session your intention and expectation is to share the good information with the remote viewing session. So you don't want to bring that into it. But after that's over, after you've ended your feedback session, you might want to do a review, um, um, especially if you get a miss or something like that, just to see if you misjudged. And that's when you also pick up things like drainage and stuff like that. But judging over the years, we have just found is much more difficult than one would normally assume. You know, it's so easy to miss things, which is part of learning how your subconscious is communicating with you. I mean, drainage is an interesting word to come up from the subconscious. And you notice that. And by doing this over and over again, you then really begin to also improve the communication channel. Like when I would do drainage, if I was doing this one, I'd say, yeah, I think that should have been a B. And, subconscious, I would have been greater if you had said water also, drainage water. Maybe next time you can give me a little more, but thanks for giving me drainage. You kind of work with your subconscious during this whole process. Okay, so let's talk now about the TARG confidence ranking scale. We're beginning to transition into doing it, and this is useful because it kind of shows you the kind of information that we want to get. If you get no information, and that happens sometimes, an off day or whatever, a 0, 1, or 2 are basically from getting very little information to what might be chance. And after you do this several times, you begin to recognize that you just really didn't make psychic contact. Just going into a dictionary and choosing words at random, you might get some matches, and it's kind of at that level. 3, you have a mixture now of enough correct elements, but certainly plenty of incorrect elements, but enough of correct elements that you believe you in fact made psychic contact with the target. You were at the correct target. That's a 3. A 4 is good correspondence with several matchable elements, okay, intermixed with some incorrect information. Now, the good correspondence goes up to this other level and several matchable. You're now basically saying, yes, I made contact, psychic contact, and it was good psychic contact, but there's still incorrect information around. A 3.5 we take to be wagerable. If you give a 3.5, and this is where the judging comes. So I'm showing it right after judging just to show ultimately it comes down to a CR level. You'd say, I'm willing to wager a few bucks on it, let's say. So that's what a 3.5 means. And notice before we looked at a 3 and a 3. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfect. That's where you were when you did your session. Now a 5 is really good correspondence with unambiguous, unique, matchable elements, but still some incorrect information. So it's this unambiguous, unique, matchable information gets you up to a 5, and we saw a lot of that in the early train example. He went to a 6 where he had good correspondence. He felt he had good correspondence with good analytical information, naming the function of the target. So that would be a 6, and relatively little incorrect information. Now the analytical information, here's where you begin to get the fact that there might be the intellect involved, the ego intellect involved. And nothing wrong with that, except you want to note it, because most of the time it's not right, but sometimes it is. And when it is right, that's pretty powerful. And then a 7 is really excellent correspondence, virtually no incorrect information. You might name the target as well as name its function, that sort of thing. This is very, very high level stuff, 6 and 7. The fact of the matter is a 4 and a 5 are both very good. I don't consider it to be displacement unless you're up at the level of a 5, 6, or 7. In other words, you have to have a really good description with unambiguous, unique, matchable elements. So that's the TARG scale. So that now connects with the stuff I showed you before.
And Marty,
Uh-huh.
the last one I had that was a hit was the Arc de Triomphe and what do they call it? Champs-Élysées or whatever. I don't speak French. And I drew and identified an arch with things going under it, and I drew the arch just about how it looks, and even had another design that was part of this. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't name it as the Arc de Triomphe, but I knew it was an arch with things going under it. So I thought that was pretty good, and it did turn out to be true.
Right, and I think you gave yourself a high score on that, as it was appropriate. Okay, let's now go on to a new prediction and get us some 5, 6, and 7s here. I saying that with a smile, but hopefully, and let's start expecting some good stuff like that to happen for each of us. So now we're getting into a new prediction. I always sort of shake around a little bit and try to loosen up my body. And this is the prediction we just did, which was the past, what we're about to take on. And here I let you know what they are. Sometimes, we don't do any front loading, but here we've always done it. And here's the question: will the SPY daily price close under 246 on October 6th, which is, a month from now? And just to make that a reasonable question, this is 246 on this price chart, which goes back to August 8th. It's showing hourly high-low closes. Got a few trend lines here. But the question is, a month from now, will it be above or below this 246? So that's the question we're asking. It's a yes/no question. And I would like you all to get into this mindset of consciousness is fundamental. It's much more fundamental than time, and that's what makes precognition possible. And that's what we're doing, purposeful precognition. And get yourself very open to receiving this information from this universal collective consciousness via your subconscious. And there's one other word, I've introduced a lot of ideas here which will hopefully settle in and you'll make yours in your own way. But trust is a new one in terms of this presentation. But I found this quote which I really liked. Trust is the glue of life. It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. Okay? So I then ask, how much do you trust your fuzzy boundary for precog communication? How much do you trust, however it happens, for you to be getting accurate information about the target that you'll be seeing in the future. So we're about now ready to do it. We're going to describe and or sketch, and now we need to get your coordinate. So this is the coordinate, target reference number. I talked already about the level of words and the kinds of things that you can expect to get. And the sketches are usually partial images. Here is the direct quote and the paper that they wrote that plays up intention, attention, and expectation. So right now you should be setting your intention for an expectation for a great session. One last part of this before I get the coordinate for you is do feel happy. Doesn't it make sense that if you're in a good, positive frame of mind, you'll do better? So you might even wait for times if you can't get into that good space where you feel pretty good about what's going to happen, you might put it off. But right now, think of something happy, think of something good, something loving, get that into your system. And we'll go about now getting a coordinate. And the way we get coordinates, again, it all starts with email. Earlier today, I, as the group manager, set up this event, which was the daily price under 246 on October 6th, yes/no question. And the program then automatically sets up links like this. And then, again, the protocol is simple. You just click on it. And you come up, let me make it bigger so you can see it. Up will come a page like this where you'll see there are a lot of different groups. These are all the other groups that we have that are using this WE protocol. But webinar workshop is highlighted here. We're just going to do one coordinate. As you get more sophisticated, some people like to do two coordinates, but it's still going after the same prediction. And you put in your email address. So I'm representing all of us here. So I put in my email address and then click. Then comes up this page, which has the coordinate. So you now have a coordinate on the top of a sheet of paper. Write that coordinate now. 774413. I also recommend you say it out loud because you're going to say it out loud again at feedback time. And it almost acts like a beacon. So it'll help you find that particular target, that particular feedback session. So the number is useful, saying it out loud. Any other magic techniques that you come up with that make sense to you, use them. But the coordinate is 774413. Over here is when we're done, we're about to do the remote viewing session, we will send to the server your transcript. Okay, that's what you would do generally, and you have to get it to your computer. Most people nowadays know how to do that with a scanner or a smartphone, and if you have any problems with that, we'll help you through that. Okay, so now let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. We've got the coordinate 774413. This is at the top of the paper. You should have your coordinate, name, date, time. This is all preliminaries. I like to draw a line showing it's a preliminary. And now we're about to get into cool down. Cool down is when you quiet your mind. It's part of this i-psi consciousness discipline, because what you want to do is get into the right mindset to be receiving information precognitively, receiving information from the feedback session when you're interacting with the target and sending or entangling the information that you're going to be receiving right now. And so paying attention to the info from your sub is what this cool down is all about, to get you ready to do that. So you're going to be transferring information from your sub to your conscious mind, and all your senses can provide information. So after you get quiet, get down whatever you know goes into your conscious mind. What in fact, this cool down, Joe McMonagle thinks it's very important. He once said 75% of this discipline. What we're about to do is, many of you I know have been here before, may have already started, and that's terrific, and you'll use your own technique. A lot of people like to use something like music, a hemisync technique, which is binaural, makes these sounds which are relaxing and helps you get into this proper mindset. I've got one which I'll put the link for in the box. It lasts 10 minutes. You right now have your intention, expectation, and you're going to witness things. The one I'm giving you has a 5-minute notice and then a 1-minute notice near the end. And let me put this in the box, and then we'll start our 10 minutes. And you guys get to do your remote viewing session. Okay, so for those of you who want to use it, just click that, and I'll start the 10 minutes now.
Hey, Marty.
Yeah.
What was the coordinate again?
The coordinate is 774413. 774413. Okay, so we'll start the 10 minutes now. Okay, you've got about a minute to go. You might get another element or two. Okay. Come on back to your normal state. Maybe stretch a little bit. Get up. You want to get back. I hope that felt good. Okay, very nice. Okay, John, I looked at the chat. You're not in agreement about displacement. Can even happen at low CR levels. Well, usually if it's a low CR level, it wouldn't be a really good enough match. So go ahead, tell me what your logic is. Oh, did you leave, John? Okay. Okay, let's move on to judging. Now remember, we're now about to do a brand new session. The previous session, you really wanted to get rid of the I ego. You know, the part that's gets you very important part, your intellectual part. It gets you through the day. You don't drive through red lights, hopefully, and make breakfast and figures out stuff. Just your normal kind of person in a very general sense. That's sort of what I mean by the I ego. Now you want this I ego with all the intelligence that it has and even some intuition to be around during the judging session. So it's different. And we're going to ask the yes/no question. So we're now about to do a match to the transcript to two possible targets. And I'll show you how you get those two possible targets. And of course, it's very easy. We talked about the judging system. So I'm just putting it up here. You can take a look at it. 3.5 being wagerable. I'll put it up later as well. Let me, in some ways, just give you a sense of the judging from a negative standpoint. If we had ourselves a skeptic here, asking a viewer what's in this envelope, and the viewer said a charcoal drawing of a woodchuck eating a small orange, the skeptic would take the point of view, nice try, a little fraud, but that's a long way from an ink drawing of a beaver eating a tangerine. Well, from our perspective, because we know the signal is not perfect, we haven't yet got this perfect communication channel worked out. I would say a tangerine is darn close to a small orange, and an ink drawing is obviously close to a charcoal drawing, and a woodchuck is close to a beaver. And in fact, you will learn what close is and how your communication channel, in fact, is trying to give you the information, but having to go through your psyche, having to be translated from your subconscious. It will use analogies, metaphors, like resemblances, it's similar to, and in fact, judgment is involved, and that's why we call it analysis and judging. So how do you get that? Guess what? I go right back here. You now have each have generated a transcript. You, if you were doing this through any one of the other groups, would now take a picture of it, scan it, get it into your computer so you then could browse for it. So you'd click that browse button and you would find, if it was a JPEG, we accept documents, PDF files. There's a pretty wide range of stuff on one of the earlier emails that listed what's accepted that you could in fact upload to the server. Right now, I am going to put in what I call a dummy transcript just so we can go to the next step. You can't go to the next step until you've completed your transcript. All of this is set up to make sure that it's precognition and you have no other way of getting the information other than your precognitive capabilities. So you simply do the scanning and hit submit, and there they are. You're now a judge. You want to be intellectual. You don't want to be emotional. Emotions tend to light things up, and you don't want to light up your judging session. You don't want to have it be anything that your remote viewing session would go to. But it's clear we choose them to be, these are prepared. We have over 800 of them, and they're chosen to be different. Okay, so what I would like you now to do is mark using that analysis A-B system next to each one of your elements, which is what Russ calls them, or precepts. And a picture may have more than one element to it. Put an A if it's a good match to A B if it's a match to B, little b, big B. That's kind of the analysis part. And then I'll have you go all the way to do confidence rankings. And then I would like you, with your judged sheet, to actually email it to me. So you will attach it to the email, and then we can all look at it.
Marty,
Yep.
can you make those pictures bigger? I can't seem to make them bigger on my screen so that we can see them a bit better.
Yeah, let me make them as big as I can now. I can make them both. There you go. Okay, let me leave it like that for a while, and then I'll bring up the target scale shortly. So right now you should be doing the A's and B's against each element or precept. Whoops. I'm trying to get the target scale for you.
do we email these to you, Marty?
After you do the A's and B's and put the confidence ranking on it. And then
Okay.
you email it to Marty at, yeah, well, you probably, here, I'll put my email address here. But yes, that's the idea. And then we'll actually look at them all.
Can you move that target ranking system off the picture a little bit?
Yeah, let me see. I think I need them both up there though for some of the people. So let me make that there. And then this here. Okay. And if you need one to be bigger, just ask me and I'll make one of them bigger, as big as I can. Okay, so the analysis part, and a lot of people like to count the number of A's and B's, and a little a might be half of a big A, to give them guidance in terms of a number. If it's dramatically more one way than another, that's certainly a good hint. But ultimately, you need to convert it to this sense here. We've been using this system for a long time, and we have a lot of data on it. And in fact, I'm just now beginning to start looking at the data in a serious way. Okay. Now, in addition to emailing that to me, in the chat box, there's a way of sending it just to the organizer, just to me. What I'd like you to do, and when you do an email, do put the coordinate in there. In the subject line, make sure it has 774413, so then I can find it a month from now, because I do want to find these again, and we'll use them just like we did earlier. So just make sure 774413 is in there. And then, thank you, John. He's already done it. To the organizer, just to make it really simple, just say A, and then equals, and then put a number between 0 and 7 for the confidence ranking for your comparison to photo site A. And then do the same thing for B. So give me the confidence ranking that you got for B. And put that in to organizer only, just because I want these to really be independently. And then I'm putting together a table, and when you're all done, we'll look at the table and make a group judgment. And we'll also look at the transcripts. Okay, so there's John.
Marty, I have a question, please.
Yes, sure.
How do you mark it if you get the exact opposite?
Well, that's...
Is that a minus B or minus A or
something you're going to, again, have to learn that about yourself. Who knows? Your subconscious may be trying to tell you that, it's like this by showing you the opposite. I don't know. I just made that up.
What does that mean, though? How do you know that it's an opposite of something?
Well, I mean, yeah. In fact, that's risky to use that in a positive way, especially looking at these two. I mean, you'd like yourself to say hot if it's hot or cold if it's cold and not give you the opposite. Maybe you should ignore it. In fact, now I would say, after thinking about it that way, I would say, it's either an A, a B, or you leave it empty, which means, no, I don't believe it was matching information. So maybe if it's opposite, that's what you should do.
Well, let me explain how it was opposite.
Okay.
I got a carpet sort of that was dark with light spots.
Okay.
And in A, it's kind of like a carpet, but it's got darker spots.
Oh, no, that would be a match.
Oh.
The spot, the exact color of the spots, as opposed, you see, it's so interesting because the communication is by the finest elements. That's why we really do use the word elements and precepts. So based on the words you said, I would say that looks like a carpet with spots. I would give that at least a little A.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I agree with that too. Like, that's just the closest thing your mind had to give you as a metaphor for what you were trying to describe.
Thank you.
And take all the time you need to do this so it feels like you did it right. That when you look at it at feedback time, remember how we did a little bit of that? You're not going to feel, oh, gee, I missed this, I missed that. So go element by element, and then you'll go back through it a second time as part of converting it to CRs or just to check. You might go through 3 times. Remember, it's right now when any action decisions are going to be taken, whether it's wagering or, in the military remote view world, they had to analyze the remote viewing sessions, and they might take some military action. They might redirect a satellite, you know. So this is a very important part of the ARV process. Thank you, Evelyn. Next time, Evelyn, send it to the organizer rather than the, presenter. That works. I'm sorry, that works.
I couldn't find Marty on here where to send in the
Yeah.
meeting thing, so I sent it to your PIA email. Is that okay?
No, yes, that's the way. That's the way to send your transcript with the marks on it. But in the box, in the chat box, you can send it to either organizer or presenter, since I'm both.
Okay.
So you probably will find one person found organizer, someone else found presenter, but they're both fine. Okay, good. Janice, you gave me A. Now give me B as well. David, send the scores.
Lori.
In Lori, sorry. In the chat box, you'll see if you click the little down arrow there, there'll be a place where you'll be able to give it to the presenter or the organizers. And then just put A and what your confidence ranking was, and then B and what your confidence ranking was. And then send off via email as an attachment your transcript with the judging. Now, Janice, I only have an A for you. There you go. Got it. Thank you.
Well, Marty, that firefighter is kind of a sore point on the whole western United States right now. It's all on fire.
I know. And we've got all kinds of soot coming this way. We're close to it. Not close enough in any danger. They'll have to get rid of the whole valley, but yeah. In fact, remember, we're in intellectual mode here. So I wanted to say something about these two, but wait, let me write this one down. Thank you, Laurie. You can see we have 800 of these, as I said, and they're chosen to be different, but they're chosen to be different in different ways. You know, a lot of different people did it, and you know, this one obviously is on temperature, and in many ways that's part of what I am trying to work on. Wouldn't it be nice if I just got lots of things that were either hot or cold and one or the other, and it came from the target? But there are obviously other differences in here. One has a person, one is an action, one isn't. And this is the kind of distinction which your subconscious can pick up. 10 years ago, God, I've been in this a lot longer than that too, but 10 years ago, I would not have said pick up distinction because there was an implication that you're then looking at both of them. But you know what? In the last 10 years, and with all the displacement discussions we've had, it's absolutely clear that the subconscious has access to both of them anyway. So why not accept that and then look for the distinctive elements? This is me, Marty Rosenblatt, speaking. Nothing has been proven about that. But again, I'm at the point where I'm trying to get you into mindset is important, and you need to pay attention and develop your own that you feel comfortable with, and then act accordingly. What's happened here? Um, three. Okay. Okay, David, I have um, okay, I see. Got it. Got it. You gave it to me. Okay, good. So B. is a 5.
Marty, this is Lila.
Is a 3. Hi, Lila.
Hi. I have to leave very quickly, so
Okay.
when you're ready, may I do mine first, please?
You got it. You got it. And we're getting
Thank
close. In
Yeah.
fact, yeah. Okay. I've got something here which is says John out basket. Okay, so I guess I do understand that. Okay. Okay, very good. And if someone hasn't finished, you take your time and you finish yours, and we can add yours to the mix later. In fact, I don't necessarily want to show that. What I want to show now is, let's see here. Okay, so I've asked people to send me theirs. Let me find yours, Lila.
Oh, I guess
I didn't see it here.
I haven't sent it yet. Sorry. I'm trying to be.
Okay.
Let me think.
Okay. John, Dave. Okay, so there's prediction. Oh no, that's a different prediction. Echo Fox. Terry. Pam. Okay, so it looks like John is first. Is yours like there right now, or should I do John's first? Maybe I'll do John's first, and then we'll do you.
Okay.
We'll do yours next. Okay, just to keep things moving here. Okay, so there's John's transcript. And he gave an A of 4.5 and a B of 2. Okay, so why don't you talk to us about this, John?
Okay. Just real quick, I would want a longer session, so I would pass on this. But just since we're just training, I did how I would score it without knowing that.
Okay.
So the first thing I did over there is the ideogram is the first, or no, actually the first thing I do is fill in like the data, name,
up here,
time. Don't forget what time standard you're in. A lot of people forget that. If you're going to turn in a session to a group, you need to know that. Then PI is actually how I'm feeling or what my condition is before I do the viewing, which is right under the time. And then I had somebody at a meeting right behind me, so I'm kind of distracted. So it's not ideal for viewing. Right. But then I went down to the ideogram and did 3 quick ideograms, and I try and make sure they're consistent, and then I break it into A and B and C. Basically, how many gestalts are within that one ideogram, and I caught 2. Oh, it looks like I forgot to score that first one. Structure and motion is what I got. And then I move over here to the left side of the paper and I start doing the lower level data, texture, color, smells, tastes, temperatures. And then if I get any visuals while I'm doing that, which is usually rare until I get later in the session, I write it in the middle. And the stuff in the middle is usually something that I'm fairly certain about, almost a pre-summary. So I got curved surface. I got a pretty heavy hit on that early on, and I couldn't tell. I scored that on both because I couldn't tell if I was. I think I might have been seeing that guy's oxygen tank, the fireman, but it could also be at the top of that mountain. So it's hard. I just scored it for both. Kind of cancels each other out, but the other stuff I got was a wet gestalt. I got waterfall over in the AOL section, but over in smells, it smells wet, tastes like water and minerals. Right. Temperature is cold. And then I had a sound of constant rushing sound, like wind or like, that's why I put waterfall, because it sounded like kind of like falling water. But that seems to be consistent with B. So
Yeah,
I
the
marked,
sound.
yeah, I marked that as a B, and dimensions curved applies to both. Aesthetic impact is something you get later in the session. I didn't mark that because I really couldn't within that amount of time. I
You didn't
need
have one,
more
yeah.
time for that. And
Okay.
then the last part is really important. Writing up a session summary, you basically go over the data that you've already marked down, and then you put the elements that you feel correct. So there could be some incorrect data in here that doesn't end up in your session summary. It's fine. It just, this is one of the last things you do. Go over what you feel is correct, write it in the session summary, and then you can add to it. But so
Why
for me,
isn't outdoor? Why isn't an outdoor also B?
I can't tell if the guy's inside or outside because there's stuff around him and
Okay.
it's unverifiable, right?
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, well, I put in the summary, it feels outdoor, it feels like park-like environment, and there's some water element. So it seems like it's pointing towards A more than anything, but like I said, I would do a longer session, and I would decode a lot more, and I would be a lot more certain with a longer session.
John, let me tell you something which I thought of here, and I'm going to do it next time for you and others. You know, I really like the fact that the oldies come as well. I will set this up so, you know, after sort of the straight educational part, and when I start getting into the new one, maybe right after I say new one, we'll go get a coordinate. So you'll have all that extra time while I'm talking to the newbies to actually do a session.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Or even the day before is fine too. Just, you know.
Yeah, that's a possibility too. But at least this way, it's all, you know, together. And okay, anyway, because I do respect that, and that's something you all should know. Different people take different lengths of time. Some people are very happy with the 10 minutes. Others have actually thought the 10 minutes was way too long. They were done a lot earlier than that. You know, they do a quick cool down, and they like the first information that comes in, and they're done. So 10 minutes is really nominal, and ultimately you need to find what feels best for you, um, um, and then do that. And of course, you'll be doing this on your own at home, so you can do it as long as you want or as short as you want.
Yeah. Just from my point, I was traditionally trained, and we're used to doing like hour-long 8-page sessions. So this is hard for me to try and compress everything because I work slower on purpose. And also, I put this template in the forum if anybody wants to use it. It's actually pretty handy if you want to do a quick session, because then you don't have to write out all the little things. You can just fill in the data.
Okay,
it's on our forum.
That's terrific. Thank you. And everybody here should now know how to get to that forum, so that's really good. I wanted to make one other comment. Aesthetic impact is, I noticed there was something in the chat box about it. That's like a personal feeling about the target. It's big, it's small, I like it. That is your feeling. That's separate from being able to pick up emotions at the target, and temperatures and stuff like that. So
let me comment on that, Marty. So where I was trained, aesthetic impact happens when you have a sense of yourself relative to the target. So once you start feeling like you're outdoor and there's a giant object in front of you, like this mountain or something, or something is in the distance and you have some sort of perspective, that's when you have aesthetic impact, and you start writing out in that section.
Right. It's right. But it's something personal to you, in a rather almost emotional. Does it have to be emotional or just real, or I don't know. The words
Something
are hard.
Well, they're saying something that differentiates you from the target, because the target information is coming through you physically, and then once you have a perspective of you relative to the target and whatever data that comes through, it could be multiple things, but you know,
it's mini by location. Is that another way to put it?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because you now are aware of you and the target being separate. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you, John. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, there you are, Lori. No, there you are, Lila. So let me do you next. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Lila, tell us about yours. Yours are
Well,
close.
yeah, they are close. My last few sessions have been just like this, very close. So
Mhm.
I've been going with 3 and 3.5.
I would talk to your sub about that and say, hey, that's cool. You're giving me information. But why don't you give me more which is related to the target or something like that? You know, build up a friendship.
Oh, I talk to my sub all the time. I tell him we're playing a game. Come on, bring me what you got.
Okay. So here you got, I see your
No,
A's and B's.
yeah. Now, my ideograms are what I rely on the most. For me, they are the most telling.
Okay, and for newbies, if you don't mind me interrupting here, for newbies, ideograms are like a squiggle. Right after you say the coordinate out loud, write it down, you just let your body take over, almost like a doodle. You don't do anything consciously, you just do whatever comes. And that's a really important communication system. And it's called an ideogram. Some people consider it more like a pictogram, but it's something like that. And it's very useful. And by you using it and watching it, um, um, it's just a guide. And once you let your communication channel know that you're willing to use it, you'd be surprised what'll come up. Typically, structures are like a rectangle. Something like this might mean water, but they tend to be individualized also. So, but while you're doing it, there's a feeling that's associated with it, and stuff comes up, and that's then what you put down afterwards.
Yes, and that's what I was doing, just putting down the feeling of it.
Mm-hmm.
My sub brought me, information for both sites, pretty close, 15 and 16. Um,
Right.
but I do have some that are pretty interesting, like spurting here in dynamics. I have
Right.
spurting, that's definitely site B,
Yep.
not anything in site A at
Yep.
all.
And moving, I would do the
Uh,
same.
I could have even said jiggly for site B as well, because fire does jiggle
Yeah.
sometimes.
Uh-huh.
At least in my experience, it does.
For sure.
So I definitely got the impression that something was moving,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I gave site B more weight than site A.
Mm-hmm. Even
Even though
though,
you can see my textures describe site A, rough, rocky.
mm-hmm.
Um, and
Outdoors
I
for
thought
sure.
site A was kind of symmetrical as well.
Yeah, I would agree with
Um,
that. Right down here.
yeah. The two hills, the two other mountaintops next to the one in the middle.
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Wheels moving was really pretty interesting for me in my dynamics, and that's the firefighter moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sounds, loud whistling, that's definitely fire.
They probably don't know, Lila, and I don't think you mind if I share, but you were a
I,
fire person.
yes, I
Right?
am a firefighter. I am.
You worked in
Yeah.
putting out
And
fire.
this
So,
person, yeah, this person's doing overhaul. He's not fighting a fire. He's getting air into the building. That's why he's got an axe in his hand.
okay.
And then, if you see my ideogram here, the one that's looks like a cauldron, I think that's definitely his breathing apparatus.
Oh yeah, back here.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And then the one above that, the spurting, that's definitely the fire spurting.
Well,
Yeah.
now this is listening to you. Now I'm just
Mhm.
listening to you. Um,
Mhm.
you seem to have what I would call the stronger ones, the ones you feel stronger about, um, being the fire. And I hope it's not because you're a fire person. It's just a better match. Like this is definitely this, you know?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that should be a big A. I mean, a big B. Yet you made it a little B.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I was thinking the water was contained on site A, but yeah, I didn't. You're right. I didn't make it a big B. I could. Yeah.
And this is what happens with judging.
On that, Marty.
What's that?
So let me ask you a question on that.
Yeah.
So whenever you're saying definite, but she, you know, coming from her background, wouldn't she naturally be more attracted to that as well?
And that's why I said I hope it wasn't from that. So, and she as the judge has to be looking into her own, you know, consciousness and feelings and all that to know that. But to me, at the very least, this should be based on the way she said it. And if she felt that at the time and all that, this certainly should be a B, if not a big B. But that's for her to know as a judge and all that. But see, this idea of the big B is important because you don't just count. Counting is one guide, Lila. But in my opinion, you have to take the strength into account. And I'm just using this as an opportunity to make that point. I mean, you could have the numbers could be the same, but if the strong ones were all on one side or the other, I could see still giving it a high score, for example, or, you know, even higher than 3.5.
Yeah. Yes, I did the same thing. Huh?
I think you forgot a couple things, though, because they're kind of similar to my transcript. Up at the top there where you say jello and road, I thought I was seeing something flat and paved, but I also thought it looked like a glass bottle. And jello could also describe that lake. I was thinking it was like a blue glass bottle. But it could also look like jello, and it definitely looks like a road because I called it flat like pavement. Okay. And then I also drew a round glass bottle, and so your bottle at the bottom, that, you know, the lake kind of looks to me like glass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Lila. So I understand, and again, you know, when I look at these, I always try to see if you've missed something. You know, this is now we're into the judging, and try to educate and get all of you to just be more conscious of the ways you can judge. I like the climbing, and I like that you did that because that easily could be climbing a mountain. So everybody should just sort of learn. This is the way the subconscious communicates. There are a lot of similarities because they use the metaphor idea and things like that. Hey, I'm telling you about a mountain by climbing, but maybe not. And that's what you learn from experience and just paying attention, which is what you do.
So the other thing that I thought was really interesting, and this word has never come up as a precept, was in my feelings. The first feeling I had was willy-nilly, and then the second one was official.
Wow.
And so I think the official is definitely B. Fire is official.
But willy-nilly is A.
To me.
Yep, absolutely. And willy-nilly is, sort of a relaxing, casual kind of feeling.
Exactly. It's just
certainly
there.
Do it for B.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried just doing a straight remote viewing session, which means the first part of this, no two targets, where you ask a question, and it can be front-loaded, and you might ask, what can I do to get, and you have to phrase the question right, and I'm not sure I have enough time here to do it right, but it would be something like, Sub, what can I do, what can we do, because it's a communication channel, what can we do to get more information on the correct target and less information on the other target?
Right. I just noticed what my first AOL says mountain. Yeah.
And you didn't even mark that.
I didn't even mark it. Nope.
It's amazing how when we judge, we don't look at every precept. For some reason, it's like we're not willing. And what does that say in terms of our commitment to this and how important it is, all of which would make the i-psi better, if it considered it important, don't you think? Important enough to do
Yes.
it right. And right is looking at every precept. You would think that. I mean, if I asked you, don't you think you should look at every precept? You would say,
Yes.
sure, of
Yes.
course. And I'm just using you as the example of when I get into the belief systems, being consistent with what you believe is the best way to do it. And it's amazing how often we are not. Thank you, Lila. That was all very, very educational, which is what this is all
Thank
about.
you, Marty.
Okay, let's get the next one. Here. Okay, so we did John. Let's do Lori. I'm just going in order here. Okay. Oh, there you go. I can actually, I wish I could do it. I have to turn it. A little cumbersome, but I can rotate them. So let me rotate this like that. I'm using a software thing called Snagit, which I really like. And then we'll rotate this 90 degrees, and there you are. Get rid of that. Let's make, and let's see if I can make this bigger. Okay, you're on. You have a mic, Lori?
I do.
Okay, so let's see. I can't see how you judged these. Did you write it on here? Well, I have it on mine.
I put
I think
3.5 for A, and I think I put 2 for B.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I see it there. Okay. Very good. So
When I first wrote the target down, I thought we were doing that first one, and when you first started the seminar, you started with a 2 something or another there, so I thought that was going to be our target number, so I had to scribble that out, and that's why I scribbled there with that other number.
No problem. Yeah.
But what I saw, I think I'm still learning how I'm supposed to be doing this, but when I first saw something, I saw something big. I saw something that I thought was perhaps a tunnel. But now that I see it was this waterway leading up to that, what looks like it's leading up to that mountain.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And aesthetic is new. I've never used that word, so I kind of scribbled that in at the last minute. But I felt cold. It was odd, but then I thought, well, I feel warm too. So, but I'm not writing things down. I really have to do that.
That's one of the, yes. And notice now that you said it, start doing it.
Yes.
Because you believe it, and that is true. So wait, did you first feel cold and then feel warm?
Yeah, I first felt cold, and then I felt warm, and I thought, well, maybe it's just because it's cold here today. But I did. I feel that.
Okay.
And but then the other part is that for the firemen there, I don't know if I saw an axe or what that was, but I did see some kind of a block or something.
Over here.
And for a B, but I just did not do well with that one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't probably cut off on the side to the right.
Notice the feeling hot and cold is again, and let me just back up a minute. If you think about what we're doing, if it wasn't that you were getting some information from the other target, okay,
yeah,
we'd be done. Precognition would be a done deal, right? You'd be 100%. Right. So it isn't like you should be, in a way, surprised that this happens. The issue is, what do we do? And that's what this series, and I'm going to continue this series until, I don't know, whenever I feel like starting a new focus. The whole issue is, what is it that you can do to improve it? And one, you're paying attention to it. This is one of your first sessions, isn't it? How many remote viewing sessions have you done?
For joining a session, I work at the time that you usually have them, so I'm never usually able to join them.
Okay.
But I try to watch videos later. But I do your weekly
Okay.
links.
Okay, so you are doing them. And in
Yes.
terms of what to do, this is the big discussion. When we use the word displacement, and I don't like to give a lot of attention to it, but it is the exact same issue, right? The subconscious has access to everything. Okay, what
Yes.
do we do to have it give me the information about the correct target? And that's the one I'm going to see at feedback. And you might ask your subconscious about that too. You might, if nothing else, say, sub, I really want to be clear. I know we've got a communication channel. Look, you gave me hot and cold. That's kind of interesting. In this case, you gave me the contrasting things, which was the primary thing here. But next time, you have access to the future target as well. Use that. That's what you're trying to communicate to your subconscious, so it gets the correct information from the UCC. I want the correct information, not both.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Janet, maybe she had 2 pages. Janet, did you have 2 pages? Is that why I have 2 from you, or maybe?
One's John, one's Janet.
Oh.
That's John.
Oh, that's right. You both do them. Okay. Okay, I'll just say. Wait, I'll save this for later. You were first, so let me get yours.
Did you rotate mine?
Yeah, and then I'll rotate it. Right.
Sorry, we didn't rotate them. I don't know.
Yeah, next time it obviously just saves a little time if you can.
Yeah, we forgot.
Yeah.
Okay. I can just start talking about it.
Yeah, and I'll rotate it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first impression up in the upper left, it looks like a little spaceship with lines, but if you look at the picture of the mountains, that's, and sort of rotate that picture upside down, the bottom of the mountain has like little lines sort of in a disc, so I attributed that to A. All of my disc-like pictures, even the hat, I attributed to A, although the man in B is also wearing a hat. So,
well, that's right. Right.
And it kind of, now at first, I would have spent a lot more time judging because the pictures are quite small, and at first I had a hard time figuring out what B was. I mean, is he standing on a building? Is he standing on the ground? It was kind of hard for me to tell. But when I wrote on the side here, a feeling in my stomach, actually I forgot to rate that. I should have put that as a B. So obviously a fire would be that sort of an unsettled feeling.
Interesting. Let me see what.
I don't have my page here. See what.
What score did you give this? A 3 to 3, yeah.
I just gave it 3 and a 3 because nothing really popped out from either one, although, if I'd spend more time judging, like down at the bottom left, above where I wrote the word clothing, if you turn the picture upside down, it kind of looks like his legs, and then maybe his suspender strap, and then the sides of whatever he's leaning against, the window or whatever that ground or whatever he's on.
Yeah. So the feeling I'm getting now is you judged it just right. I mean, I really think you need to hold out for more. You can do more. Yeah. And if you get satisfied with less, that's all it's going to give you. So I really think it's fine to be, hey, thank you,
Yeah, and again, I would have spent more time doing an RV session, so I probably would have gotten more. I kind of started to put things down a lot quicker than I normally would have. So
yeah. I'm gonna see to it that regulars get more time next time.
So big fat pass for me.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And that's something else to get deep in you. It's okay to pass. There are many, many reasons that can happen.
I'm good with passing.
That's exactly right. Okay, wonderful.
Just one thing on that, Marty.
Yep.
You got that hat or that curve shape.
Oop, I lost.
Often,
Go ahead, talk about it.
or more than one time. That's usually a good piece of data to decode a little bit more, to get more data on. Like if you have that same shape coming up, then you spend a little. I mean, not in these. When we have a longer session, you can actually spend more time and file down on that data a little bit, parse it out.
Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's turn this one around. And John, you can start talking about it here. You gave it a 4 and a 2.5, I see.
Yeah, the main thing is just cold, snow, frosted. I wrote those words down first.
Wow, right.
And then I also got like covered in white, like white cover. Actually, the scene I kind of popped into my head was a snow-covered cabin in a pine forest. But I mean, as far as, picking up pieces of that to write down on the paper. And like the window scene was like, I had a picture of like some like clear like ice or something on the corner of a window.
Yeah.
But I waited. The window could also be the firefighter. It turned out to be a day scene, not a night scene, so I gave B a little weight on the night scene. And the full moon, I also had a picture of a full moon, but that could be the color of the fire because they're about the same, that cream yellow.
Yeah, it could be right here.
And then also had an image of like mixed light spinning, but again, that could be related to the fire too because it's kind of blurred lighting.
Well, that brings up a question for me. Like if you put down something like light spinning and it doesn't apply to either, should you try to form fit it in there or just ignore it?
I think ignore it, but that's obviously up to you as a judge wearing your i-psi judge hat to decide. I just don't recommend pushing it. And there's gray area with some of this stuff. Well, there are a couple of things I want to say. I want to go back before I talk about this one because you had said, I mean, I'm looking at this, and of course on my screen, it is big. Is there something about GoToMeeting that doesn't allow you to read this stuff?
Oh, we only have a laptop.
We just have a little teeny laptop.
Oh, okay. But the rest of you can get it to fill up your screen and see it hopefully pretty well.
Yeah, we can read it.
Okay, good. I'm looking at this, and I think this is really good, especially when you tell me you got cold, snow, frosted, very first thing. And over here you have the pine trees. Now you gave A a 4. I can't quarrel with that. We've done independent studies, and differing by 1 is actually normal. When you get a lot of people, you get a range of 1 sort of on average. But I think this is really very good, and a 4 is very good. And you giving it a 4.5, I wouldn't really have any complaint at all. So, okay, very nice.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay, let me get the next one. Okay, we did Janet. Let's do Valerie. Before you said go. What do you want? Which one would you like? Oh, there are 2 pages.
Yeah, I did it on a very small notebook.
Oh, okay. Let me. It just doesn't give me a rotate here capability. I wish it did. No. Okay. Well, this works. It's just.
You can do it from that edit picture that you just had up.
You think so? Let's see if that'll be.
No. Look up at the top of your menu. Yeah. You see that little? No. Right of the 71%.
Well, here. Will this one work here? This edit pictures?
Yeah.
Is it the same? Oh, you think there's an okay. Rotate.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. And flip.
You have little hotkeys for that too up there. The little purple things.
Wait, what happened here? Wait.
Rotate to the right or left. Go up 1.
Yeah,
Go up 2.
is that interesting? The flip
No,
does
Marty.
something different. Yeah, no, I
There
understand.
you go. Okay.
I just have to rotate twice. That was just interesting the way the other one did it. Okay, and then let me take the second one, and we'll be able to get them both here at the same time. Was that page 2 or 1?
That was page 1, but I did it before you said go, so I really...
That's okay. I have a person I'm working with, and they do it before they get the coordinate, knowing it's the next one, and they put the other coordinate on later. So as long as your intention is really clear, and I think it's hard for it not to be clear under these circumstances. Now, why doesn't this have the flip?
It has it. You have to click on rotate and flip on the right side.
Edit pictures. Rotate and flip. Right. Okay. So we have the two.
I'd be surprised if you can read my handwriting.
Yeah. Well, but that's why we've got you here.
Yeah.
And let me get the 2 pictures up. There we go. Okay. Go ahead. Talk to us about it. What, Valerie, you gave?
I didn't score it. I missed that part. I'm sorry. I was just busy trying to figure out if I got anything, and if so, if it went with an A or a B.
You marked the A's and B's. Okay, that's good. We'll maybe do it together. That'll be instructive. Okay, very good. So
my guess was on space shuttle.
Let's see. Did you count how many A's and B's you have? I see a lot of B's down here. Well, tell us what struck you. What struck you as being a good match and struck you when you're doing your session?
I guess that road. I didn't even write that down. I'm learning a lot from listening to people, and so now I'm thinking the road, that carpet with the different points on it, was actually the water.
Right, road and expanse. Yes, I would definitely. That definitely should be an A for sure, a capital A.
Oh, a capital A? Okay.
As opposed to, well, I do think you can make a distinction between, it matches, but it's not really a strong match. I would consider that to be a strong match.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
And the carpet?
I thought I was, I was getting off on the space and galaxy and stars. There's the dark background. Maybe, I don't know whether that's both A and B, because the sky is dark.
Yeah, see, space and galaxy, I think if you were to put a small A there, and if anybody disagrees, let me know, but I think a small A works there. I mean, especially, but,
I would only mark it if you're feeling it, though. Like, if it doesn't make sense, then I would leave it.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. In other words, what did you mean by space? Did you mean outer space, or did you mean?
I meant outer space. I was in outer space, so I'll take that away.
So that is not what this is. This is a spacey environment. See, it has an entirely different feeling.
Right. And I was way above the planet. I think the second one, though, I got a triangle with a spiral. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the mountain with the way it's reflected in the water. It looks like a circle.
Okay, and that's your interpretation. It could be. I just happen to know one thing that fires do is they swirl like crazy.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. At first I wrote some lines, and then I thought plants, because somehow I was thinking of a field of wheat, but I definitely got vertical vegetation. So I guess that's A. The pine trees?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And even wheat is close, sort of, but staying with the vegetation theme.
Uh-huh.
All of this is that. Okay.
Just for some feedback, that's a lot of nouns. Just saying.
A lot of nouns?
Well, wheat.
Yeah.
I think,
Road. Yeah. The way it's being described, you want to, if you can stick to adjectives,
Uh-huh.
it's a lot better. It's a lot cleaner data because then you're not going to make assumptions or
Right.
or get into data well.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm beginning to think I do better with colors, or maybe that's because of what you just said, that it's easier if you just use the adjectives. Because I got brown and gold for B.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's here. Is that gold? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
brown and gold.
Yeah, okay, right.
Under vertical.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. But in spite of what John said, if you get vegetation, if that comes up sort of out of nowhere, from your sub, you write it down.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sure. Write everything down, but what I'm saying
Exactly.
is, and vegetation can be correct, but as soon as you write down the noun vegetation, now you can start castle building and your mind will start creating a park, or it'll create your vegetable garden outside or something like that. So if you,
And that's what you don't want to do. But you
Right,
want
and
to
that's what I did a lot of.
Okay. I think this was the very first. Is this your first session ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, good job.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted them to understand that. I know that, but no, this is you're getting stuff. Free form, very nice. And you got a sketch.
Well, I'm beginning to realize that it might help me to learn a little bit of how to draw and start looking at things, my world, in terms of shape.
Yep.
And I don't have that, so I'm going to work on that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I got a noise. I thought it was a hum, a low hum, but it's probably the fire because fire makes a lot of noise.
Right. So how would we rank this? Looking at all of this and what you said, I'm not sure I see anything quite strong enough, but I like this vegetation loop. I don't know. I'm gonna give you a 3 for A and a 2.5 for B. Just to put something in. You don't disagree with that, John? You don't disagree with that?
Yeah, I might go 3 and 2.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. The fact that we're all of us, it's really so great that we're all willing to share this, the good, bad, and the ugly and all that kind of stuff. It's so powerful, and this really is working as a community.
Marty, I have a question. What happens in the past? This has happened to both John and I. We've gotten two pictures that are so similar. Either they're both pictures of cold, or they're both with heavy in the green, or they're both, the photos, I know they're randomly chosen, are just so similar in some of their things. What do you do in that situation?
Okay, well, that's a good question. And first of all, they are prepared. They're not randomly chosen. So if you get two and they both have cold in them, there was likely something else which was dramatically different about them in one of the senses. It could have been shape, it could have been big, small, it could be inside, outside, it could be water, no water, plus secondary things. Somebody specifically chose that pair because of the differences, not because of the similarities. Now you're seeing.
Okay, I thought they were random. Okay.
No, they're not. They're just like these. These were obviously chosen to be very different than they really are in lots of ways. And other people have done it now. And they have been reviewed. Russ Targ and I reviewed them many years ago. But we've learned stuff since then. In other words, the things about what are metaphors and stuff like that, which the consciousness might see, that might be more similar than we would do again today. And we, in fact, are reworking those pairs. And if you get one which you think is really bad, I want you to tell me about it, because then I'll look at it and I might replace it with something else. So that's part
Oh,
of
okay.
part
That's
of the
really good
process.
to know. Okay. Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
and now let me tell you what I think you should do under those circumstances. I think when you get that strong feeling and when you're doing the judging, which is when you know this, that's your feeling, I think you should pass. And there are two ways of passing. One way is to make sure your CRs are both below 3.5. The other is to make them the same. So if you happen to get a lot of matches to both, maybe in the area where they match, so they're in both, but one was a little better and you were thinking of giving one a 4 and one a 3.5, I'd give them both 4s or both 3.5s, and that'll make it a pass.
Oh, okay, John is asking, what if they're both, say, above 3.5 for their wagerable?
If they're both above,
but one's higher.
But then you have to decide if the similarity in pictures we're talking about here, or for some other reason, for example, if they're very close, even if you have a 5 and a 4.5, I would pass under those circumstances. Now, that's me personally, because I have seen myself and so many others when they're close not being much more than 50-50, and that's the kind of stuff. Then what you do, no, then I'm going to tell you what you do. Then what you do is, instead of making it a 5 and a 4.5, you make them both 4.5s or both 5s. And that will lead to,
okay, because otherwise the computer won't know what to give you. Okay.
That's right. So that's your way of telling the system, I really want to pass, but there were good matches. So you've really given a lot of information, and good information, good matches, and I want to pass.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Crystal, Evelyn, yeah, you used it here, 774, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to have to make it quick because I got somebody's going to show
I know,
up.
I don't know how to make these shorter. I wish I did. Okay, but go ahead and do it. And
it's interesting because 3 of us got a coil or a spring shape, and looking at the picture again, you made it, I don't know whether you made it bigger or what. Looking at that picture again, it's like the top of that lake almost looks like a spring. You know, it almost looks like a coil there with the shadows and things. So I wonder if that's why 3 of us got a coil type shape, because I did too. That was the last thing I got at the bottom.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. But see, for me,
I cheated. I cheated. You said Play-Doh, and during the conference, I went and made myself some Play-Doh, and so it sits here, and I forget to use it. So I grabbed a gob of Play-Doh, and while you were talking, I was playing with it.
Uh-huh.
And I laid out this shape that's actually identical to my first sketch, but I didn't do that sketch from the shape. I did the sketch from actually seeing it. So
let me ask you this. This is a coil shape. What was the feeling when you did the coil shape?
It was the feeling that it wasn't legs. I knew a person could call them legs here. They were laying there. And it's kind of sloppy, so it molded together. But when I first laid it out, they were apart like that. And then at the end, it was kind of almost like a beak, but it was taller at the back end there, kind of sharp like a beak. And it was like, I didn't get the sense that they were legs. And if you look at the way that the water is, the snow is coming down to the water, it's that same kind of shape that I was trying to draw. So I really think it wasn't the man's legs. I think it was the water and the humped up snow.
Okay, well, and that's why ultimately you gave an A a 4 and a B a 2.
Right, and my ideogram and 2 of the 4 gestalts matched A,
Mhm.
and very little matched B, except that Grime and Go really matched B.
Right. And this
And
matches
then I
B.
wasn't sure about the coil and the flower at the bottom, but I really think that was the lake. And the interesting thing is that I kind of saw it like glass, and then I saw it like flat parking lot.
Yeah,
And
no, that's
either
good.
one,
Yep,
you
yep.
know, is that lake. So I definitely know I was seeing that lake, and I had the sense of it being like a paved lot, but there was kind of mountainous stuff around it. That's what I felt. And well, it's not paved, but that was
Okay,
the
well,
only
that's
feeling.
no, but it's
So,
again using analogies and
and then the
metaphors.
last
That was
thing
very
after,
good. That was very good.
well, and I wrote down the coordinate and started doing it, right away, like all of us older
Right,
ones do.
right. I'm going to give it
And
to you
so
even
I had a
earlier
little longer.
next time.
And
Yeah.
and, and also the last thing I did after you called time was write the blue and the yellow up there. So the
Mhm.
blue was real strong and the yellow came too, but those were my last two things to write. So the yellow kind of goes with that other one, and the bottom one where I put flower question mark, because the coil sort of morphed into a flower, but I wasn't real sure
Yeah.
that
Okay,
was
Evelyn,
what I was seeing.
can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes.
me? I want to ask you a question, which is really general to almost everybody. You called this a coil.
Yeah, I was trying to draw
Wait,
it
wait,
as a
wait, wait. Let me
coil.
ask my question. And you did that. What I'm trying to understand is what the immediate um, perception was. Like the word coil comes late. Did you
Yeah,
see it
what
mentally? Did
I
you?
saw was like a roll of fencing, like a roll of fencing that it's like chicken wire or something.
So that
I was
is what you
seeing.
saw. That was sort of the
Yeah, that's
first
what I was
precept.
seeing, and
Okay.
then I knew it was coiled up, but it was like a roll of fence, or and then I called it a tight spring because it sort of changed to look more like a spring, but I knew it felt like something rolled up, and
Yeah.
it kind
Okay.
of the top
Okay.
of that lake kind of has a little bit of that look.
See,
Anyway, thank you everybody.
okay. Good. Thank you. You take care, Evelyn.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Marty, that brings up a question that I have.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a great drawer, so if
Good.
in my mind I saw, say, something like that was coiled, maybe my only way to draw that and express that would be to say, well, it looks like a spring. Maybe it's not a spring the way I visioned it, but sometimes maybe because we're not great drawers, our only way is through words, which of course isn't the best thing, because then somebody judging it can say, well, it's not a coil.
Well, yes, except everybody knows the idea of the metaphors, and what you just said is true. You do not have to be a great drawer to do this. And that's one of the advantages of self-judging, is you remember the way the precept came up. That's why I'm asking this question, and you obviously got it. What matters is the raw information as it came up and got into your consciousness. And how well you draw it and all that, you want to do that more for the memory and the judging when you do self-judging. But you understand my point. Some people are very visual, and then yes, they can hopefully get a good image of it, but others might just get a sense of rotating. I asked this question because if I had done the coil, I would have put it with the fire. Now that's me, because again, I know enough about fires to know that they rotate a lot. They almost can't help but have a rotational component to it. And so I personally look at this, and if I were to do this session and what came up to me was kind of a curly, I'm drawing like this, a curly thing like this, I would draw it as a coil, but I would know what I meant, and hopefully I would also say rotation or something like that. So it's learning.
Okay, that's a good point. Because when I judge my husband's and he judges me, we kind of come up with different things, because what was in his mind, he remembers, and I don't know what his thoughts were. And so I see it differently.
That's the potential disconnect between what the remote viewer perceived at the most fundamental level. And I just can't not tell you how important it is to understand that and to get that, because that's what's coming from the UCC, and the consciousness is usually good information, frankly. But then in the interpretation of it going from just barely coming in to how it gets understood and all that, and gets put down on a piece of paper, that's where a lot of noise comes from. At least that's my interpretation. But the conversation we just had is very important, because there's this distinction about what really comes in as the initial precept versus, how it gets put down on a piece of paper and understood and all of that. And that's the step between the RV session and the judging session. So, okay, very good. Thank you. Let's do the next one. I guess I did. Did I do Lori? No, I think I just clicked it. Well, we'll see in a minute. No. Okay, Lori?
Yes, I'm here.
Good, good. Why don't you talk to us about this one?
Okay, well, before we started, I drew something that I saw in my mind's eye. It looked like a snake, and I drew it.
Oh, a lot of coils. Yeah. Okay.
I wrote it looks like a worm, but I don't know. The fire's rotated. That's what's new to me. So, yeah. And then I got biological for B for the fire picture. I got biological brown, ocean red. I put 2 lowercase b's for heavy lifting, because I think he's not obviously not lifting anything, but he's got a big job. White, black, and then I have as the attractor a man's face facing left.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I also have fringe like, which I think that fire looks like it's fringed.
When you said attractor, you wrote that down at the time that this is what you felt was the main attractor to this picture? To the target. Wow.
Yes.
That's okay. I want everybody to notice that. That's the fact that you sense that. That's pretty strong.
Thanks. I asked myself, what's the attractor? And then I wait to find out. And I also asked myself, other things that people ask, like, did I forget anything, or what did I forget that's important? And, how do I feel there, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, fringe-like, and then red. I saw the color red twice. So I really got 12 things for B, and then I got about 8 things for A.
Right. But you gave B the 5.
Yeah, mostly because I saw the man.
The man, and you felt it as being the attractor.
I did feel hot too, but didn't write it down.
Yeah.
But
write it down. I see.
I even got up and looked at my thermostat. It was like 74 in here. So.
Oh wow. Okay, that's very nice. Very nice. Okay, thank you. And I've got your 3 and 5. And let's. Okay, so I think that's the last one. Did I miss anybody? I do like to go through all of them because they're just so educational to hear other people talk about their own session and what they see and don't see and all that. Okay, so having done that now, what I have here is a compilation, and I just added this, of everybody. Please do check that I've got you down accurately.
Hello.
Hey, Marty.
Yeah.
Millie's trying to talk to you, and she just has a low mic.
Oh, Millie, I can't hear you. Can you talk? Make the mic louder.
I sent you my email, and then I checked back, and it said that it was sent to the Marty PIA. Did you get it?
Okay, so let's take a look. I did not get it. Did you send it to p-i-a.com, Marty at p-i-a.com?
I'll resend it. It's okay.
Yeah, send it again. No. Okay, and while that's coming, and we will look at it, and we'll add Millie here. Let's see what we've got so far, and I'll show you what I do. People do things differently. John, I'd love you to give one of these classes one of these days. You can show people the way you do it, because I know it's a little bit different than me. But what I do is I mark the 3.5s in gray. In other words, they were wagerable, but it was sort of on the margin. I don't want to give it quite as much credit as the 4s and 4.5s, which I do just in yellow. I usually use that as my marker. And then on this side, there's my 3.5. And here's a big 5. I don't know. The world is designed to make this complicated. I don't know why it does it to challenge us. Because notice, here, let me see if I didn't get you yet, Millie. Oh, maybe I need to, let's do a refresh here. Oh, why? No, I should get you automatically. I don't know why you're not coming up. That's very strange. Okay, but here's the situation. So I ignore everything below the 3.5, and look what we have here. We have 3 yellows versus 2 yellows, but guess what? These 2 yellows are darn strong. They're the 5s. Here, the 3.5 versus 3, which is on the B side, I'm actually inclined to ignore totally. When there's only a difference of 0.5, I really don't like it. In fact, had this been a 5 and a 4.5, I wouldn't feel nearly as comfortable about the 5. But these two are darn strong. These are strong, but only one more than this. Certainly not dominating. Right now, I would lean towards passing. What would you do, John, or anybody else? What would you recommend?
I would definitely pass. That's the idea.
Yeah. And that makes another point. Since we're not all 100%, we almost expect this, where we get the contrast of having good sessions on both sides. However, lots of times we have had where it was dominating. I mean, we might get a 5, even 2 5s on this side, but then we might have 3 5s on this side, and even a 6 and then a 4, where the difference of the yellows would be 6 versus 2 or 5 versus 2, and then it's clear. Millie, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not getting it. That's another problem.
I just resent it. So if you don't get it, I don't know what happened. Maybe
why don't you take one of my emails? Do you have anything that's from me?
Yeah, I did that just this last time, just now. Like Marty.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I don't know what happened.
Well, there's obviously a problem between you and me, and it's got to be an internet problem. Because where do you live? Do you live in an unusual place with bad internet access?
No, I usually have great internet access. I'm in Chicago. So
Yeah, well,
I'll
that's
just be real
certainly.
quick.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's okay. Well, maybe separately we ought to try to figure that out. How did you rank yours?
I did mine for BS3 and AS2,
Okay, so that one.
and the similarities were like spiraling, circling, twisting, and those went to a B. Uh, and tubes, like tubular, diagonal. So some of the similarities with other sessions were some of the things that came out. But I'll just try to send you.
Okay, but yours then won't change the group prediction, which is where we are now, and it's a pass. But let me say this: if this was something you wanted to wager on, it was wagerable, and what you get from the normal groups is a group prediction. You wouldn't quite have this much detail, though sometimes I do give it for the carve group, how many on each side and stuff like that. But nevertheless, if you got a 5 and you felt comfortable with it, and let's say the group went with the photo side A, I believe that you ought to go with your own, giving this note of confidence all the way down to the UCC that as an i-psi, my i-psi personality trusts itself and it's going to go with what it says. Now that gets modulated by your history, and that's why we keep a history. Is that a rational, reasonable thing to do based on history? And all of them again gets factored in and how much you might wager. So those are kind of my thoughts on that. Okay, so we've done a pass. I will put that in the record, and let me now go back to the PowerPoint, which is one of these two, which is this one. Okay, I'm going to finish this off.
Real quick, it looks like Millie's session went to your email.
Oh, you saw it? Well, that's smart. And it just came. There we go. Okay, Millie, finally made it. We can take a quick look at it, but there you go, Millie. Oh, I like your A and B's, and doing it in different colors is important too. Shimmery.
So I thought a lot of them matched A, but I eventually gave myself a higher score for B because of the kind of that circle, which may have been a human figure for my eyes.
Right.
Kind of like
with the fire.
And that circle thing might have represented a human. So I may have just given myself a higher 1 point for B.
Okay. But still a pass. I'm just looking to see. Fix spinning. Again, spinning would be 5. Boy, we really got a lot of spiral stuff. Really, that is interesting. There's something about that target that wanted to give spiral. Huh. You have to understand that I'm learning with the rest of you. I just happen to be facilitating this and teaching, I guess, just based on being around a long time. But
are we all pulling spirals because somebody else is pulling spiral within the group?
I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah,
I hope it's
interesting.
Yeah, and that's why we, give people different pictures in the regular groups. But why did the first person do a spiral?
Well, the other question is, are we getting spirals in our sessions now because we have now at this point talked about it so much, right?
I know.
Well, also we're all RVing at the exact same time.
We live in a different kind of world, don't we, folks? And we're all beginning to accommodate that. I mean, the fact that we're even thinking like this shows that we do accept this new world, and we have to learn how to live in it. And that's what we're doing. I mean, we're right at the cutting edge, that mysterious edge that's going to eventually lead to this consciousness paradigm shift that a lot of us talk about. And precognition is going to be part of it, clearly. when it gets accepted that a remote viewer at an earlier time can share information with the feedbacker at a later time, it's like telepathy but with yourself. And we do this on a regular, reliable basis. Still not 100%. Hey, if we can do it reliably 80%, you ask me 20 questions, and reliably you know you're going to get 16 of them correct, that's a new world. That's a new world. And that's where we're headed. And that's where we're headed. And we're all going to be living differently in that world. And I think it's worth spending some time talking about what that world might be like. Wagering, sports wagering is going to be very different. Financial markets will be very different. If I can make 16 out of 20 trades correct, guess what? The markets change. They become very, very stable, frankly, because what we pick up are oscillations, and they're going to be fewer and fewer oscillations because people will be picking up the bigger ones. Anyway, I have a vision of what this, I don't have a real good one yet, but I am working on a vision because I think it'll help us get there. And I think you should do that too. That's a suggestion. With your i-psi, what is it all leading to? What am I going to become part of when I get better at this? I've convinced myself with a real knowing it's going to be a better world. Every time we learn more about the universe, while there's usually periods of chaos, we end off in a much better world. The world we're in now went through many paradigm shifts, from flat Earth through the Earth being the center of the universe, etc., until we have our current paradigm. And this current paradigm is just not balanced between the scientific intellectual world and this consciousness is fundamental psi world. But we know it to be true. And the psi awareness, using your conscious awareness and intention, attention, expectation, this is going to lead to our new world. And it's a wonderful challenge that we're taking on. And it extends a lot further than just what we're doing with ARV. Once you really get what you're into is so different, a true paradigm shift, you really get that you're okay, and you got to internalize this, but your present life experiences are influenced by, entangled with your future life experiences. We've had several talk with the guy called Ulysses. I forgot his last name right now, but he brings this idea of syntropy into the mix, a very important idea, because science has proven that our physical world has this concept called entropy, which takes us towards disorder. That's what entropy does. You have a bunch of marbles all stacked nicely, or a bunch of marbles tend to go away naturally, but coins in a nice big stack, and you put a kid in there, and it's going to get distributed. The natural flow of things is to distribute things. Heat goes towards cold, and they mix and stuff like that. That's entropy. But if you look at our world, how did we develop? We didn't develop human beings. Life didn't develop from starting out by moving towards more chaos. We really developed by doing the opposite. That's what syntropy is. Syntropy is this tendency to bring order to things. And that is information from the future. And he has a very nice model which talks about that. I'm going to have him out again. I have him out as often as I can. Anyway, this idea that what you're getting into, picking up information from the future, is something which will be part of your life as you get into this more and more. And it has lots of other impacts on you. So with that, I wish us all healthier, wealthier, and wiser lives, and I believe we can make that happen. And with that, I thank you all for coming. If there are any final questions or comments, let's do them now.
Thank you, Marty. I enjoyed this.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank
a
you.
great session.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Let me turn this off. I do see a question in the comment box. George, I see your comment about 80%, and I don't believe you. And I'm saying that because you've never showed me any data over a statistically significant period of time. And that's what we're all about here, is getting enough data to do that. I have seen your examples, and they're just like our examples here of really, really good cases where you know there's something going on. And I don't question that there's something going on when you use reverse speech or tapping or all of that. But can I use it the next time in a reliable fashion? And I believe that's the way we have to think if we're going to move into the new paradigm, because this only will affect the new paradigm if there's a true application, a reliable application. Now, it can be a statistically reliable application, but it has to be out there right for the longer term. Hey, I can, a lot of people will do 80% on 4, or 75% getting 3 out of 4 correct. But I want to get 80% over the long term, so I feel comfortable making decisions on it. Okay, but how about 90 out of 110? If all you did was 9 out of 11, that doesn't prove it for the long term. But I would even like to see that data. See, that's a nice thing about precognition. You can't, ARV as the application of precognition, you can't quarrel with it. You either get a hit or a miss. So, okay, well then use it here. Let's start getting data in ARV, George, where we can use it for wagering. Okay, everybody, yeah, I think you're right. It is time to end this. I thank you all for coming, and do keep precogging.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Right.
Everybody.